Before we dive into our class for today, what we are going to do in this course and all those things, I want you to look at this picture and tell me, what do you see? So have a look at this picture and tell me what comes to your mind. So Himanshu says overflow. What do others think? Piyush says buffer overflow. Oh my God, Piyush, you are doing too much of C programming now. Overflow of knowledge. Yeah, so Santosh is getting now more moving away from programming and now coming to real, talking about abstract things as well now. uh, Overflow of water. Vibha likes to keep it specific and likes it to the point. So what I'm trying to point out over here is, yeah, Nitish, it's kind of, yeah, you shouldn't do this. Yeah. So what I'm trying to point out is, a lot of you have been to a stage where now you have completed some years in the industry now. A lot of you know a lot of things, but this is what happens if you're trying to learn something new when you're already full. uh, what will happen is, will you be able to absorb anything? Will you be able to take in the new knowledge that we are trying to share with you? No, right? It is not possible for you to take in new things if your glass is already full, and if you are expecting that by coming to Code Heroku or joining a training or education program, you will be able to if you want to transform your life in some way or other, first thing that you should do is first empty yourself, right? And at the end of the day, when you go home from the class, what you should do is connect with things that you already know, and take the new things that you have learned and combine those together, but not in the class itself. Because if you try to if you not unlearn what you already know, it is very difficult for you to take in new knowledge and grab new concepts. This is what I have experienced in the past, and just wanted to share that with you as a starting point into our journey. Is that be childlike, ask a lot of questions, comment on our chat box over there. Don't be passive, be proactive. No question is a bad question over here. Okay, make sure that you ask things which no if it comes to your mind, it is better to clarify them rather than to just hesitate asking them. Okay, so now that you understand that, hope you guys got what I was trying to convey over there. Once we know that, I want you to take you to a very important problem. Okay, this problem is okay, let me not set this up too much, because then you'll be disappointed a lot. Okay, let me go right into that. uh, how many pieces of toast can fill up your entire room? Okay, I want to start off with this important problem, and I'll tell you how it connects to machine learning and what we are doing today. So think about how many pieces of toast can fill up your entire room. Okay, Sudipto says many, but millions. But will this be a scientific answer to say? Like, if someone says, so Santosh is coming up with the formula. So Santosh, you're talking in terms of area over there, but this is a three-dimensional setting. So are you talking about volume now? Do you want to convert that to volume? So again, think about it. I want you to work out how will you approach this problem, and think of it in a scientific way as well, rather than just saying many toasts. I mean, it's not inaccurate, but it's not precise as well. So think about it, and don't give me a number, but tell me, how are you approaching this problem? So Divya has a comment over there as well. Welcome Divya as well. So I introduced Divya to you in our last, no, in our WhatsApp chat as well. So she'll be taking a few classes with us. I guess she's just hanging out in this class as well. So guys, tell me, let's say if I ask you how many pieces of toast that can fill up my room, what will be your approach? Yeah, what is your volume of room? What is the volume of your room? So a good insight that Nitesh comes with is, when someone asks you a question, if you are a smart person, what is the first thing that you should do? You should ask more questions, right? So be sure that you understand the problem statement correctly first. The first thing that you should do once you, when someone tells you, so let's say I tell Nitesh that it is somewhere around like 4,000, 5,000 cubic, units. So what should be the next step then? Yeah, volume of the toast. Or what you are doing right now is, no, you're trying to break this problem into smaller pieces. You're saying that if one cubic, units of this room can fill up with 2 units of toast, then how many units will fill up 3,000, right? So what you are doing there is trying to break this problem into smaller units, and if you know that equation, then you can scale it up, right? So what is this concept? I think we have discussed this in our introduction to or getting started with machine learning webinar as well. Like, what is this concept called? When you break this entire thing into smaller pieces, in computing, when we break our problem into smaller units and then solve that small problem, what is that concept called? What is that approach, algorithmic approach called? Yes, Sudipto got that right. It is divide and conquer, right? So we'll be doing that with our machine learning problems as well a lot. And one of the first objectives of this program is going to be making you a good problem solver. And throughout this course, we'll be discussing this art, is how do you solve problems more effectively. And specifically, we'll be dealing a lot with machine learning problems, but in general, the techniques that you will learn in this program are applicable to anything that you do, maybe even life as well, right? The first thing that I told you, which is, in today's class, we have discussed two things which makes you a good problem solver. What was the first thing that I said? The first thing that you should do to solve the problem is, first, ask more questions, ask the right questions first. Whenever you go to an interview, when someone puts out a question in front of you, make sure you know what the assumptions are. Now, is this room on earth? Is this on some other planet? Right? What are the assumptions? uh, Once you have asked the right questions, what is the second thing that we said that you should do? once we have got the right answers, or no, once we understand the problem properly, what is the second thing that we said we should do? Yeah, break down the problem into smaller pieces and solve that individual, focus on that individual part first, right? So this is gonna be, these are just two things that I told you, but throughout this course I'll be introducing you to more ways on which you can, solve most of the problems effectively, and some of it is at a lot of abstract level as well. But if you think about it, uh, if you get the bigger chunks right, if you have that mindset correct, doing it at the algorithmic level, or finding those individual models, or making your programs work, that is just a small piece of the entire problem. So make sure that you have that mindset correct, and how you approach machine learning, programming, computer science, or anything in life in general. Of course, you want to become good at Python and statistics, because when we do machine learning, and specifically the classical statistical machine learning, it has to know the roots are there in pattern recognition and statistics. We want to make sure that we understand those concepts properly, and we'll be using Python programming for most part. So if you are struggling with the language itself, then it becomes difficult to focus on the real problem. So we want to make sure that you understand Python properly before we go into supervised machine learning and those concepts. We want to turn you into a data wizard. Okay, now this could be an extreme statement, but yes, I want you to be able to play with data as you would wish. So you will be able to extract data, transform it, publish it somewhere, query it from a database, or publish your models to an API. So those things we'll be able to do in the class and in the program. And of course, we want to make you into a machine learning practitioner, and not someone who just has studied machine learning, or who has read a bunch of things or watched a few videos. So all our classes are very hands-on in nature. The first part, we understand the theory and the concepts behind it, and then we dive in, get our hands dirty with the actual code. So that will be the theme for the most of our classes in this program, is that we'll be building some real projects using the concepts that we have learned. And more than anything else, what we want to do is spark a desire to learn more. In this 1.5 month or 6 month program, whichever you have signed up for, it is not possible for me to teach you everything that is possible. It is impossible for any program to teach you what is going to be required 3 years, 5 years down the line. So rather, our approach, what we take is, how can we teach you how to fish, rather than giving you that fish itself, right? So it's a different approach in terms of not spoon feeding you everything. So a lot of times when you ask me questions, what I'm going to tell you is, hey, why don't you try it out, or why don't you look it up, right? So that doesn't necessarily always mean that I don't know that, but it could be, right? Even I can't know everything that is out there. But what I'll tell you is, what I'll do is help you, guide you in that, in your journey towards learning these things, rather than telling you, hey, this is the concept number 1, this is the concept number 2, this is how you learn it. No, that's not the way we approach education, or that's not our teaching philosophy. What we try to do is help you, guide you, but in the end, you are on this journey, and you have to learn a lot of things by yourself as well. So if you think that just coming to this class 2 hours 11 through 1 on weekends is that's it, that's all the time that you have to invest to learn machine learning, you are wrong. You have to work outside of the class as well. So once we complete our class, I'm expecting that you will revise some concepts, find out new things, and obviously we'll also have a lot of assignments that will be there. So you will be spending at least another 3 to 4 hours every weekend learning by yourself as well. So this class will push you in that direction, but you have to work by yourself in order to succeed, or no, in order to get best out of this program. I hope no, all of you are with me and are excited about our the outcomes that we are hoping to achieve through this program. I want to give you a sense of what's in the house for next 3 to 4 weeks. I don't want to go over the entire course syllabus because it is just too difficult for you to remember everything at this point. But just know that we'll be starting off with Python, basics of Python, and tomorrow we'll do a little more Python. We'll do some intermediate concepts tomorrow. We'll start off with basics today. Some of you might already know these things. It could be a revision for you. You might be also interested in just taking up the exercises. So we'll try to keep it at a level where someone who doesn't know anything about Python can understand as well. So you will have to stick with me on that one. And then we'll slowly move into Python packages, which are very extensively used for machine learning, things like NumPy, Matplotlib, pandas, right? So slowly we'll get into those packages, and this will be next weekend when Divya will be joining you, and Divya will be leading those sessions, wherein she'll walk you through some of the concepts in NumPy, Matplotlib, and statistics for machine learning, right? So that's what you should expect. And then once we are done with the first module, we'll again have a self-evaluation, just like the one that you did for your prep test. So the philosophy that we use over here is, this is not like an engineering test, okay? For yourself, like, how much good are you with this module once you complete your self-evaluation. And what we recommend is, unless you get more than 80% of marks in the self-evaluation, you should seriously consider redoing these modules. So either what you could do is rewatch the recorded videos and again give another test, or what you could do is, if you think that you have completed 3 modules and you're still not to a point where the exercises, the self-evaluations that you're doing, you're consistently getting not good results, maybe you should also think about joining another batch, which will be like trailing by few lectures. So you will get some 2 to 3 weeks. So it is not like, because we understand this is not a factory, right? Because a lot of engineering schools programs have become factories today. Irrespective of whether you have learned something, they just push you ahead, right? This has been the trend of our educational system. What we understand is, each student is different. Everyone has their own learning pace. There are some good things about the live session. The live session helps you to be in the schedule that every weekend at 11 a.m. you have to come to this class. You are accountable to your friends in the class and me as well. But the bad thing is, everyone has their own learning pace. So we don't expect that everyone will be able to cope up. Some people might be really quick at it. Some people might need a little more time at each module. So we give that flexibility in terms of, it is not necessary that irrespective of you get those things or not, you should move ahead to the next module. You have that flexibility in terms of which batch do you want to do these modules in, whether you want to take some break and come back. It's up to you, okay? In the next module, we'll be moving to data extraction. We'll be specifically looking how to get data from another websites, or some web pages, or some commonly available or data sources which are very popular things. Websites like UC Irvine database, or there is Open Gov database from US government as well, and those things. And obviously, if you want to get it from some databases like SQLite or NoSQL databases, we'll be working with them, and how do you use Python to query these databases. And then we'll be, obviously, once you have the data, you also want to clean them, normalize it, harmonize it, so that you can use it in your machine learning applications. So this is what you should expect in next month and a half that this is what we are expecting to cover. Again, there might be some flexibility. We might have to tweak it a little based on how things go for your batch, but this is what is planned in next month or so. All right, let's get into Python. The first module, which is Introduction to Python. What we are hoping to do today is we'll get you to some basic programming exercises in Python. So before I go in, can I get a sense of how many of you have tried and worked with Python before? Like, go into the chat box and tell me, are you a beginner or are you at an intermediate level? So you could say beginner or intermediate. That will get me a good sense. So based on what you tell me, either this will be more of a quiz, like, no, tell me how do you do this, tell me how do you do this, or it will be like, this is how you do it. So tell me in the chat over there, are you a beginner in Python or are you at an intermediate level? So I've got answers from Vibha, Himanshu, Piyush, who say they are a beginner. Nitesh is also just getting started, Santosh as well. Udav has some experience with Python before, so that's good, Udav. And Sudipto knows some amount of Python as well. Okay, great. So Udav and Sudipto, it's your duty to also help other people in your batch, whether it is in the class or on the WhatsApp groups as well. Okay, but guys, please be sure that you are cognizant of other people's time as well, and don't just pick up the phone and call them. Text them on the WhatsApp group, and keep it professional. Okay. All right. So there are two types of programming languages that exist out there. The first type of programming languages are called as compiled languages. And an example of a compiled language is something like a C program, right? Wherein you have a source code. Let's say it could be hello.c, and you give the source code to a compiler. Let's say it's our C compiler. And what the C compiler does is takes this hello.c file and converts it to an executable or a machine code. Now this machine code is just ones and zeros that your computer can understand, right? And you run this machine code on a computer and it produces something like a hello world if it's a hello world program, right? So these are this is the first workflow that you come across, which a compiled language uses, right? The other type of programming languages, or some people call them scripting languages as well, are called as interpreted languages. And interpreted language, instead of again, we have a source code. Now this could be something like a Python source file, which is hello.py, and you give it to a Python interpreter. And what your Python interpreter does is converts this source code and executes these instructions directly onto your computer, right? So what's the new thing over here? That over here, you are not converting your source code to this machine code, but this interpreter itself is running. It's a program which is running on your computer, and it generates the operations or produces the results that you are expecting, right? So based on what you understand from what I just said, which of these languages, let's say if I write a same program in language 1 over here, which is a compiled language, and I write the same program in language 2 over here, which one do you think will execute faster on your computer? So guys, again, think of it, because don't just look at in terms of the path over here. Okay, so over here you have a program which has been compiled and it is over here, and the second one, you have a program which is over here. So which program itself, like once you have compiled the program, which program will run faster, which one will execute faster on this computer. So let's say if I write hello.c program. Yeah, so once it is compiled, let's say you have the executable ready. Once you have that executable ready, which one will execute faster on your computer? Let's say you are building a real-time system where you are trying to do a face recognition system. You have written your first program in C, C++, and it has been compiled. It is ready to execute on your program. Compared it to a face recognition program, a real-time face recognition system, a code that you have written in Python over here. Which one do you think will do better, will give you a better performance? So I've got few answers for one. Initially, when I put up the question, everyone was consistently like, okay, it's 2, 2, 2, because you saw shorter path over here, right? But think about it. When you are comparing these performances, obviously you don't want to compare the time where which the developer took to build and execute and compile this program. Okay, that is done. Once your program is ready, which one will execute faster? The first one, right? So think about compare it with a real world interpreter. Let's say if you have someone who is talking, who can just talk in Chinese, and there is another person who can talk only in English, right? And if they both have to have a conversation between them, what will happen? If there is an interpreter in between, so the English person will say something, then interpreter will convert it to Chinese, and then again vice versa. Right, over here it is the same thing. You can imagine that conversation will go a little more slower, right, compared to this two over here, where your computer can directly understand this language. Does that make sense? Why the first one will be more faster? Are you all with me? Yeah, so that is why compiled languages will perform much more faster over here than an interpreted language. Okay, so I'm trying to point out a few differences over here. So Nitesh, you should go and again check it. What from my experience as well, I can tell you that interpreted languages are much more slower than compiled languages. For let's say, take an example of the face recognition system. So a few years back, when I was building this face recognition system in in C, C++. So it was a C++ and we were using OpenCV. And at that time, we were getting a frame rate of about, let's say, 20 to 25 frames per second of the processing speed. But when you implement the same code in Python, you would get a processing speed of anywhere between 5 to 10 frames a second. So it's almost like 2 or 3 times speed that we were losing. So compiled language at any day will outperform an interpreted language because of this intermediate stage in between, wherein you don't have a machine code which is directly ready to execute on your program. Okay, so that's why whenever let's say you are writing routines for embedded systems as well, you will see that they use a lot of C, C++ languages. Even in Python as well, if there are some routines that are very expensive, computationally expensive, what you see is a lot of people will inject a C code within your your Python execution flow, and what they can do is call those binaries on the runtime. So interpreted language at any day will be slower than a compiled language. Okay. The other difference over here is compiled languages are not cross-platform, and whereas an interpreted languages are cross-platform. Because once you have that interpreter which is compiled on these different platforms, now you can just write the same script over on the different platforms. But with compiled languages, you have to compile the program on different platforms. And I'm not sure if you have tried it. Let's say if you write a C++ program or a Java program on one platform, let's say you write it for Linux, can you just pick up the same program and will it work seamlessly on the other? If you have that executable, first of all, let's think about just the executable. Will you be able to pick the same executable from a Linux system and execute it on Windows? Will that executable work on Windows? If you compile something on Linux, take the executable and put it on Windows, will it work? No, right? Because that is compiled for that particular operating system. The other thing that it is, even let's say someone tries to compile it, will it be seamless? Has anyone tried that before? Like, when will it be like, will you have to troubleshoot a few things as well? Right? So some header files might be missing, and you might say that, oh, this is there in something like get ch might be available on some platform, or no, it might not be possible to do it on other platform, and so on. There are so many other nuances, right? So Santosh has a question over there that I have seen somewhere, that Python also creates .pyc file. How is different from compiled languages? So Santosh, that we'll come to that tomorrow when we talk about those packages and modules of Python. But that's not a binary file, that .pyc file that is generated. Okay. So the next thing that I'm telling over here is compiled languages are more reliable than interpreted languages. And now, can you think about why am I saying so? I'll go back to this flow over here. I'm saying that this compiled languages, the first path over here, this is much more reliable than this path over here. Why am I saying that compiled languages, when you execute a program which is built from a compiled languages, that is much more efficient, that is much more reliable than something like an interpreted language over here? Think about why am I saying so? So I'm not talking in terms of IP risk or those things, but I'm saying that let's say if you're doing a mission critical program, right? Like millions of lives depend on it, or let's say like billions of dollars are dependent on this thing. You would rather write your program in a compiled language than an interpreted language. So Sudipto says because their machine code is in compiled language, which is robust. So I'm not sure if what you're pointing out there is correct, but so let me tell you, if this sounds correct to you. When you write compiled languages, is the entire source code compiled at once? Does your compiler go through your entire program at once? Is that correct? And whereas in interpreted language, what is happening is it is looking at just one instruction at a time, right? So let's say if there is a if else statement in our program, and this if condition, this if else statement, you go into that branch only once in a million chances. So there is 1 in a million chance that you encounter this if else condition, but there is an error in your source code in that if condition. So will your compiler will be able to pick out that error, even if it is inside that if else statement? So something like you're writing to a wrong location, or you're reading a file which does not exist. right? So those kind of things, or no. So what happens is, over here, your compiler looks at the entire source code at once, and if there are any errors, no, most likely your compiler, if it is a modern day compiler, it will be able to make out that there is an error over there. But with interpreter, the way it is designed is to read just one statement at a time. So let's say if you're writing a no program for a rocket ship or no space shuttle, what happens if that 1 in a million chance happens in space? No, in during all the simulation or no everything, testing and all those things, everything was working fine. But when it went to space, that 1 in 1 millionth or no 1 billion chance that did happen, and your program crashes. What will happen? If your program crashes, if it's a critical part of your operating system on a spaceship, the entire thing can go down, right? So you don't want to take your chances with interpreted languages when you're doing those mission critical things, because with the compiled languages you are assured that your compiler has done those checks on each statement. And most modern day interpreters also do it, but this is a traditional view saying that in general you can most people will agree to you when you say that compiled languages are more reliable than interpreted languages. Some examples of compiled languages: C, C++, Swift, which is used for iOS, and we have Java, which is somewhere in between. I'm sure that there are some people over here who who said that they are Java developers, so they can attest to this. Java is somewhere in between over there. It is compiled to Java bytecode, which runs on a Java virtual machine, which is interpreted in real time. So you can tell me if that is, if you don't agree to me that Java is somewhere in between over there. Python is definitely an interpreted language, because we just saw, right? I was giving you an example that it's an interpreted language. And JavaScript as well. Does someone over here work with JavaScript? So if you guys work with JavaScript, again, it's an interpreted languages. The JavaScript engine, which is in your browser, which most browsers support, interprets the JavaScript on the runtime. Okay, everyone with me on this? Okay. So quiz for you. Which of the following statement is false? Interpreted languages are faster to execute than compiled languages. Compiled languages are more reliable. C++ is an example of a compiled language. Yep, all of you are getting that right. As we just said, the interpreted languages are definitely slower than compiled languages, and in my experience it is somewhere around 5 to 10 times slower, depending upon the program that you have. But that's the scale that we are talking about. It's not like just a little slower, it's like 5-10 times slower. Okay. And you might be thinking, well, why are we using Python then? Because it's not reliable, it's slower. We'll see. We'll see why are we using Python in our to build machine learning models as well. So hopefully I'll be able to answer that question. So what are the things that you can do with Python? Okay, besides machine learning, that's what we are trying to do over here. But besides that, what all things can you do with Python? So Python is great for building web apps as well. A lot of web apps that we know, platforms like the web app for Instagram. The web app for Instagram uses Python-based framework. Pinterest, a lot of us love Pinterest as well. And the web app for Pinterest is built using a Python-based web framework. I think so. Quora as well. Quora uses a modified version of Django, I believe, for its to deliver its content on the web platform. But one example that I'm missing over here is also YouTube, right? So YouTube, you might imagine the scale of queries or the performance that they might be requiring from their framework, but uh, Python, they are using Python and a Python based framework to deploy to show us all the great videos that millions of billions of time minutes of videos over there. Okay, so Python is great for building web apps as well. Data visualization, I think this is pretty unique to Python, comparing it to C++ and Java specifically, because those languages you might not have seen people do data visualization. So you can do some great visualizations like this one. Uh, Over here, I'm showing a linear regression model or gradient descent algorithm, which is trying to fit a line. We have seen this in our getting started with machine learning a little bit, wherein we are trying to draw a line through in between all these points. Again, this is some another physics simulation over here, these two. And over here again, they are trying to trying to come up with the model of this plane. They're trying to adjust some parameters over here. Okay, so all these great visualizations you can do in Python, which I think is, if you have used Java or something like C++, it's not very common for you to do visualizations. It's not that easy, right? Building games, you can build games using Python. It might not be to the level of Xbox games or the PlayStation games, things that you can do in Unity, but now you can build some simple games, two-player games, multiplayer games in Python. And people who do robotics and IoT love Python as well, just because it's so widely supported, right? Now I'm showing a Raspberry Pi over here. You can write your programs in Python and run it on a Raspberry Pi. This thing is called a robot operating system over here. And this robot operating system, just like we have Windows and Linux, it's a for our desktop computers, there is a operating system called ROS, or robot operating system, which is popular for educational and industrial, some of the industrial robots as well. And now a lot of people write the code for ROS in Python as well. So and this is just for visual thing. This is just an animation. It's a pick and place robot that I'm trying to show you over here. Okay. And of course, you could do machine learning with Python. That's why we are over here. Again, some visualizations of, I think this is a k-means clustering algorithm that that we are showing over here, which you can implement in Python. And scikit-learn, which is a very popular Python package for building supervised and unsupervised machine learning models, is also supported widely in Python. And that's why a lot of people use Python, because there is so much of community support. So again, I make this statement a lot, that a lot of people use Python for machine learning because a lot of other people use it as well, right? So kind of it's like that circle, that when the story started with the initial group of people who were doing machine learning, they did not really they were not programmers, they were mathematicians, they were scientists. So they were like, we are not programmers, I don't want to deal with Java and write 10 lines of code to do a hello world. I don't want to deal with JVM and all those things. What I want is a simple language wherein I can write these programs which feels like English, and I can write these programs, I can test my hypothesis or test my thoughts pretty quickly and iterate quickly, right? And that's why they chose Python. And once the initial group of researchers were into Python, and that's why they started off with things like MATLAB as well. But then they saw that Python was free, and everyone loves free things, right? So they were like, okay, let's use Python for our experiments, and that's how it started, growing, and the community grew. And once the community was so strong that it doesn't make sense to know or do these things in other languages now. Okay. All right. So question for you: Python is best suited for machine learning applications because? All right. So sorry for that. I was speaking a lot with me muted. What I was telling you is the, you all of you are correct over there. And I was telling Ravi Teja, I'm not sure if you were there for the first part, but be sure that you are asking a lot of questions, and just being proactive. Ask a question that will help other students as well. Don't think that this question is stupid, or no, why, what will other people think of me. uh, Make the most out of these sessions, and let's keep it interactive. Okay. So all of you were right. As we said, Python is so easy to use, and there are so many number of packages and community support which is available that it doesn't make sense for us to do it in some other language. Comparing it with R or MATLAB, so the new packages which are coming for reinforcement learning, deep learning, which are currently the state of the art algorithms in machine learning, they are more supported in Python than, let's say, R. Right? So things like TensorFlow, there is so much of more support which is available on Python than any other language, right? They are trying to come up with JavaScript version of TensorFlow as well, and they are trying to come up with a mobile version as well, TensorFlow Lite. But most people, you will see that when they are putting the code in production, they are using Python, and not something like R. Or that's why we try to focus a lot on teaching all these concepts in Python. Lot of other programs and courses, what they do is try to teach you a lot of things, different things. They'll do some little bit of R as well, little bit of Python, and some other things as well. They might do Tableau, but we think that it is more important that you become expert, or become really good at one particular language, and then you can scale up. Let's say if you go to a company, and if they are using R Studio and those kind of things, you will be able to quickly change. And when you go for interview as well, if you tell that I'm a great at Python, they know that you will become good at R as well. Okay. Any questions over there until now? I think we'll be just moving to the hands-on part now. So do we have any questions over here? All right, so let's move on to the hands-on part for today's session. I had given you some steps to install Python. I want to make sure that everyone has Python installed. If you are not on your computers right now watching it from a mobile phone, please make sure that all our sessions are hands-on. So you should join from a desktop computer on the side as well. If you're just watching on your phone, or whatever your setup is, make sure that you are working alongside me. So let's go over here, and I'll open up my Python interpreter. So what I want you to guys to do is go to your search box and say, look for command prompt. Okay. And write Python over here. And you should see a prompt like this one. So do this and let me know in the chat box if you see a prompt like this. You should see the Python version number printed and you should see a prompt like this. All right, guys, so I'm waiting over here, just making sure that everyone is on this point. Go to your command window, type in Python over there, and you should see a prompt like this. So what we are seeing over here is called as a Python interactive shell. Okay, so Python gives us this nice way to try out our few simple things. If you have some things or not statements that you want to try out, you're not sure about, you can open this interactive shell and try out some Python commands. Okay, you will be obviously not writing your entire Python scripts or 100 200 lines of code over here, but this is for you to try out a few quick things. Okay, so let's try out something over here. So let's start off with very simple thing, something like a is equal to 1, right? So we're just creating a variable and giving it 1. Note over here, I did not say that int a is 1, right? And let's see what is the type of variable that our Python interpreted this as. So let's just say print, or let's just say type of a, right? So it knows that it is an integer, right? So we did not tell it explicitly. Our Python interpreter is smart enough to know that because it is a number over here, it gave it as a type integer, right? So which is not true for no other compiled languages. So if you work with Java or C++ before, you have to explicitly define what type of variable are you declaring, right? So now the other thing that I can do is, let's say now if I want to say a is equal to Mihir now, right? And let's say if I do a type of a now, what do we have? A string, right? So the same variable name, now I could define it as a string as well, right? So what will happen? Can I do this in C, C++ or Java? Will your C compiler let me do this? What will be the name of error that will be generated if I try to change the variable type over there? What will be the name of error that will be generated? So it is not type mismatch, Nitesh. So let's say if we have a C compiler, you first initialize or define that variable with as an integer, and then you try to redefine it with a character array that is a string. What will happen? So it will complain that you're trying to redefine, right? So it will say redefinition of the same variable or something like that, redeclaration, right? So but with Python you have this flexibility and it takes care of those things internally, so you don't have to worry about those things. So it is good in some ways, and some people might argue that, hey, that is a bad thing, right? So if there are 100 people who are working, how do I know if some other module is changing my variable, right? So in some ways it is good for your own flexibility, but it has a trade-off over there, right? So some people might not like it as well. They like when those rules are strictly defined. Okay, so let's do something like let's do a simple addition of two numbers. So let's say b is equal to 2 over here, and you could do something like a plus b. And now because a is a string, so it cannot add those two things, right? So what should we do? Let's just first say a is equal to 1 again, and then we could say a plus b. Now we have 3, right? So Python makes a great calculator as well. So if you want to look nerdy in front of your friends, instead of opening up your calculator or do it on Google, open a Python shell and do it over there. Okay, so Python makes a great calculator. Just a few things that we were trying out on this interactive shell. Again, this is not the place where you will do most of your programs, but I just want to make sure that I show this to you guys, that there is this capability which is not possible with other programming languages. Like, I'm not sure if so Java is trying to come up with something like this, but they don't have it yet, I believe. Okay, so try it out and tell me once you are done. And guys, did you see why did we get an error over here? Because over here we had defined a is a string, and if b was an integer, if we tried to add those things, it gave us an error, right? And that's why what I did was say a is equal to 1 again, and then when we did a plus b, we got a is equal to 3. Okay, so Vibha, are you getting it? Okay, great. So when we are at different sections at different times, now I might call out a few different names. So the reason is because we know at which which concepts now we have to focus more on you. I want to make sure that people who are leading a who are little behind, they understand these concepts. So Divya, what did I say when we started off the session? Is, let's say when you tell me something like, will this work? What will I say? Try it out, right? That is the approach. No, try it out, see what happens. Okay. All right, so let's close this for now. This was a good thing to try out, but you can try out a few more things, but let's close this for now. So now let's open our text editor. I had asked you guys to install Sublime Text, but if you want to work with some other text editor, you're already comfortable with it, I'm fine. But no, I would be doing all our exercises in Sublime Text Editor. All right, so we don't want all these things. So I'm going to create a new file. I opened my Sublime Text. Again, guys, the way I opened my Sublime Text Editor was I went to my search box and I said Sublime Text. And I want to say file, save as. Now create a directory or wherever you want to work in. So I'm going to go to my documents and let's say ML career track. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do that. Sorry. So I created a new folder. I want to create a new folder over here. I want to say, go over here, let's say, and this in my documents, I'm going to save this as, I want to save it as hello.py. I already have a hello.py over here. Yeah, let's say, let's replace it. Okay. Right. So I just opened my Sublime Text and saved my file as hello.py over here. Get over here and tell me once you are over here. So create a new file and save that file in wherever you want to save it, and just save it as, make sure you are using .py extension. That's how your Sublime Text Editor. You can notice over here that my language over here is now changed to Python, right? Because Sublime Text knows that the .py extension is for Python. Make sure you have saved your file as .py extension. So I got some dones, but I'll just wait for once I get the done from everyone. Okay, so most of you are getting there. So let's write the first comment. So the way you write comments in Python is by using the pound sign. So you could say pound sign over here. Let me zoom in a little so that you guys can see it. So write the pound sign, and then you could say, this is my first Python program, right? And guys, why do we write comments in our programs? Why is it so important? Because if you want to refer it, after 1 year, or let's say someone else is looking at your program, you want to make sure that they can understand it properly, right? So it is generally a good practice to write a lot of comments with your code. Whenever you're submitting your assignments to us as well, make sure you comment and tell us what were you thinking when you were writing that method or that function. Okay, so this is how you write comments. Now let's do the same thing that we were trying to do before. So let's say a is equal to 2, b is equal to, now these spaces don't matter, but just so that you guys can look at this properly, I am now adding these spaces for you. C is equal to a plus b, right? And then you could say print C. Now let's see what do we get. Now save it and say control plus B. Okay, so I'm gonna say control plus B as in ball, or what you could say is go to the tools and then you could say build over here. So control plus B, right? So I'm getting 5 over here. So we were able to execute our first Python program. So tell me if you are able to do this. And you might get a prompt over there saying, when you set control plus B, there might a window open. So just press enter and just select the first option over there. It will say Python's interpreter, something like that. So just you want to say Python and just hit enter. All right, so I'm getting a few done. All right, so once we are done with this, can you guys write a simple program to now, instead of adding those two numbers, I want to divide them. What will you do? Which line of code will you change? Instead of adding those two numbers, can you change it to divide it? Go ahead and do that. And see if it is working for you. Okay, so all of you are getting that. So what you're just doing is just dividing it over here, so it should work. And now let's do something like this. So instead of saying C equals to A plus B, let's just keep it C equals to A plus B. Now let's say if you want to say check if the value of C is greater than some number, how do you do the condition over there? So how do we write conditions in Python? Is by saying if C is greater than 4. Again, I'm just adding these spaces for you to see it properly, okay? But you should not do this when you are writing your code. If C is greater than 4, I can say now, note I'm using this colon over here. Okay, so as soon as I use a colon, and if you are using Sublime Text, you should automatically get an indent over here, right? So it's an indent that no, that is getting generated. So you are in this scope now. Okay, so the tabs over here define the scope for your program, just like we have curly brackets in C, which define the scope of that function or that condition. We have in Python, we use a colon over here and then use a tab to get inside the scope. Okay, so you could say print C, right? Or not C over here, let's just say C is less than 4, else we want to say print C is greater. Okay, now let's see what do we get. So we are getting C is, oh, we used a wrong operator over here, right? So C is greater. Okay, so C is less than 4 or C is greater. Over here 2 plus 3 will be 5. That's why we are getting C as greater. Okay, try it out. So this is how we do conditions in Python. Let me know once you are done. Okay, so now let's now do something like now an array, or now an equivalent of array. We have something like a list in Python. Okay, so a list is just a collection of different data types, which are collection of variables that are related to each other, and you want to store them together. So in Python, you could do something like, let's say my list is equal to Mihir 1, 2.0, 5, okay, whatever. Can we do this in C? Or no, I'm not sure if we can do this in Java. And what is so unique that I'm doing over here? Yeah, different data types, right? Which is, it's great. Over here, I in the first item have a string, then I have a integer, then I have a floating point number, and again an integer, right? So Python lets you do that, which is great. So now let's try to see how do I get the first element of this list. So instead of uh, having this entire list, if I want just the first element of this list, I could say something like print my list of 0. So we are indexing into this list, and we're saying get me the first item from this list. Okay, so let's see what do we get. Yep, we got Mihir over here because that was the first item in this list. Okay, so try it out, and I want you guys to figure out. Again, guys, this is the basic philosophy that we are going to use in all our classes. I'll try to show you a few quick things, and then you will try to go on internet, use Google, and try to find out how will you do some other things. So now that I have shown you how do you get the first element of the list, can you go ahead and find out how will you get the last element of the list? Okay, I want you to find out how will you get the last element of the list. If you already know it, uh, keep it to you. Okay, and I want the other people who don't know it to be able to find it out. Okay, So guys, again, I want to make sure that you understand this. In this class over here, we have some people who are, at a level where, they are really good with Python, and we have other people as well who might not be that great. So I want to make sure that if you already know it, you've already done it several times, you let other people answer and let them find out. So what you should do when you're trying to find out things, who should be your rescue when Mihir doesn't tell you, who else will tell you? Yes, Google will tell you, Piyush. Google. So go to Google, find out how will you get the last element from the list. So guys, I'm gonna wait over here for people who are trying to find it out, okay? So for those who are not able to get it, go to Google and look how will you get for the last element of the list, how will you print it out? Or you might get it by intuition as well. No, you have tried some other programming languages, you already done this in other language, try it out, and if it works, just let me know that you are done. So type in the chat box that you are done if you have got it. But we want to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind, okay? That is more important. For people who are done, uh, get some snacks. Yes, Viva. So you can use either -1 or 3. So can you think of why, no, something like when you're trying to get the last element of the list, why it might not be very a good practice to use 3 index as 3 over there? What could happen? So let's say if you go over here and say something like this, last item in my list is my list of 3, right? So you're getting 5, that is correct. So Santosh has a good point over there, saying that if it is a big list, you can't like count. You don't have to always count by hand over there, but what you could also use a Python method to get the length of that list, right? That is one thing. Too many numbers difficult to count, but also think about what if someone else goes over here and adds a new number to this list tomorrow. Now again, do you want to change this number over here, right? Now every time someone adds a number, you have to change this number over here. So that's not a good thing to do. Instead, what you could say is -1 over here, and now you'll always get the last number. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, all right. So now let's see if we want to print first 3 numbers. What will you guys do? Just try it out. And once you are done, just say done over here. You want to print first 3 numbers. Okay, don't write in the answer over here, so that I want everyone to try it out. We want first 3 elements of this list. So I want Mihir 1 and 2.0. How will you write your code to do that? First 3 elements. Right. So seems like most of you are done over there. So the way you would do it is just say 0 to 3, right? Because this will give you the first element and it will say 0, 1, and 2. Okay. So if you give 3 over here, it will go from the index 0, 1, and 2. Okay. Everyone with me over here? Okay. All right. So similarly, can you also you know, do last 3 items? All right, so seems like most of you are getting done over there. I'm just gonna wait another few seconds. All right, so for those who are done, how will we, if I want to add a new item to this list, like instead of like manually adding like what I did just now, if I want to add it programmatically, I want to add a new element to the end of this list, how will I add it? Can you find out? So I want to add a new item, new element to this list. I don't want to add it like physically over here. Like I don't want to go it and hard code it, but I want to add it on the runtime. Like when things get generated, I want to add them. How should I do that? So Santosh, try it out and try to append an item to your list and see if that works. And guys, please make sure that you tell me if I am going a little fast or if I'm going a little slow, whatever that is. I'm trying to keep it such that people who do not have any experience with Python as well, they can understand it as well. And for people who have some experience, I don't want them to get bored as well. Okay, but as you can see, Python is pretty much English-like. There's less syntax and more work that you're doing. So it's pretty easy to understand, and that's why just doing it might look like a rapid fire for you right now. And trust me, you'll get these things. Once you work on a lot on it, these things will come very intuitively to you as well. Okay, so things are very intuitive in Python. I got just one done on the adding a new item to the list from Santosh. Do we have others who have done that as well? Ravi Teja, Sudipto, Udhav, Nitesh are done. I'm just waiting for, I think, couple of more people over here. Okay, so let's come over here and just say my list dot append, and you could say 3 over here, and let's see what happens. And now let's print out my list as well. So let's get rid of this and then say print my list. Now let's see what do we get. Yep, we got 3 at the end over here. Okay, and Divya just said that you could also use the insert method to add an element to a particular index. Okay, all right. So done with this. What if I want to remove a particular item from a list? What will we do? So let's say if I want to remove this element, what should I do? So guys, again, once you know the answer, just type in done over here. Okay. I want to make sure that everyone else is able to get to these answer by themselves and not on the chat window. Okay, so everyone is, I think you're getting over there. And what you're saying over here is instead of append, what you could say is just say, let's say, say pop 0. What do I get? I removed the first element over there, right? Because this is the 0th element over there, which I popped out of the list. Okay, that's why I got an list like this one. Okay, all right, so this is all good. What if I want to print all these elements in my list one by one, right? So I want to iterate over all the items in my list using a loop, right? So in Python, what you could say is you could say for item in my list. Now, where is this item coming from? It is not a keyword. See, it is not highlighted over here. You could write something like XYZ, whatever name of a variable that you want to give it, right? But for me, I generally use something like an item, which is more intuitive to me, because then I could say for item in my list, print item, right? So I could do something like this. Now, let me just comment out these statements over here. I don't need this. So the way I commented out this entire block is I said control and backslash. Okay. So control and backslash, that will give a block comment to all the lines that I have selected. So, or you could go over here and say this toggle comment, control and backslash. Okay. So control backslash, I don't want this print this out. I just want for all items in my list, I want to say print item. Right? So I got all these items in my list over here, right? So try it out. So a lot of you are getting done over there. All right, so for those who are done, what I want to do is now I want to print out an item in this list only if it is a number, right? So only if it is 1, 2.0 or 5, I want to print it out. If it is something, a string like Mihir, I don't want to print it out. So how will you do that? Can you go ahead and do that? Or let's say, instead of saying that, okay, let me just tweak a problem statement a little. Only if the number is greater than 4, only if an element in this list is greater than 4. So over here, 5 is greater than 4, right? I want to print it out. So the only thing that should be printed in this loop is the number 5. I want to write a statement, right? I want to say print item only if it is greater than 4. How will you do this? So guys, we'll wait another few seconds for everyone to get done, and then I would want you to share your answers as well. All right, guys. So for those who are done, can you share your answers now? What are you doing to check if the item is greater than 4 and then you are printing it? So in this case, the only number which should get printed is 5. Can you share what are you using over there? Copy paste your code. So guys, can you copy paste your code over there and tell me, show me what are you using? So Sudipto is using conditions over there, right? So he's checking if it is an int or a float. So Sudipto, but what will happen if it is a long float or no? If if your if the data type is it's a number, but it's a D type, it's a double float, or no, it's a no instance of some other no numpy array variable. What will happen? Will your conditions work? It's a number, but it's not int or a float. So will you write all those things then? Or will you check for all those data types? So what could be a better way then? And Nitesh is also, so Nitesh, over there you're using something, I'm not sure if that is correct, because what I want to do is just print this 5 over here, okay? And I don't want anything like no Mihir or no, that should be compared. So try it out, Nitesh. Unless if it is working, just paste the working code over here. So again, Santosh, have you tried that out? What is happening? Is that working? So Santosh is doing something like this, right? So what he's saying is, if item is greater than 4, then you could say print item, right? But will this work? No, right? Because the first element of this list is a string, and you can't compare a string with an integer, right? So this won't work. And Santosh, I'm saying the same thing over here to you as well. What if it is not an integer? What if it is a float over here, right? So what if this is a 6.0, right? So I want that to be printed as well. Will you just again check for multiple data types as well? So what could be one option? Try to Google up a few things as well and see what are you guys getting. So Sudipto says try catch. So Sudipto, why don't you try that? And Nitesh, I'm just saying the same thing over here again to you as well. Listen to me, what I'm trying to tell you guys. You're checking for no instance of an integer, but what if it is 6.0? I want that to be printed as well. And will you know if it no, it's a long float or no some other data type? Uh, are you gonna check for all the instances, like for all the data types? So Himanshu, uh, what if the value or another type, so we also have null data types in Python. So if it is not a string, but it could be a data type again which it can't be compared, right? So if we have a null data type or a none over here, right? So something like this, your program will fail then, because it is not a string. So you will try to compare, and then the item will be great, then you will try to do comparison, so it will break. right? So this is a crucial thing that we do when we are programming, is also try to look for all corner cases, right? So history is filled with examples where people have not taken into account all these corner cases and their programs have failed. It kind of works, but when something bad happens, they fail. So what we should do to, and what do we do to account all the corner cases, or try to look out for errors? What is the, and Sudeep already gave us some hints into that. What is the functional block that we use in programming languages to look handle errors? Have you guys used the try and catch in other programming languages? When you try something, if it doesn't work, then you handle the errors, the exceptions. Have you done exceptional handling? Yep. So this is a perfect Pythonic way of doing it as well. In Python, we do this all the time. When what we do is use something called as a try and the try and except block over here. So you could say something like, "Hey, try this out first. If it doesn't work, I'm fine with it. Just forget about it." Okay. So you just add a tab over here again, and you could say try accept, and hey, if you can't compare it, that means that it's not just worth doing it. Just say pass over here. Okay, so you're just saying, you're using the keyword pass to just get out of it, because you have to write something in this block over here, otherwise that won't work. So you're saying try this, if it doesn't work, just pass. So let's see if this works. Yep, now we are getting 6.0 as well and 5 as well. Okay, and there are other ways of doing it. Okay, there are numerous ways of handling this, but this is a perfect Pythonic way of doing it, is to use the try and except block when you get stuck into situations like this, so that you don't have to compare it with instance of so many other data types that could show up in a list, especially when we're dealing with data, right? So that data might have some corrupt instances, or some nan values, null values, or something like those things. So are we going to handle all those cases? No, right? We don't want to write that much of code. So perfect Pythonic way of doing it is using something like a try and accept. Okay, so everyone has tried that. Funny that I can it's coming to my mind every time I talk about the try and accept. So try it out, the try and accept block, and let me know once you're done in the chat box. So again, Vibha, are you getting it? And Sudipto, I think you already got it. Ravi Teja, how are you doing? Right, so Himanshu is also done. Guys, at any point in the class, let's say if you feel like you are getting lost behind, or you are at an exercise which is 1 or 2 steps behind the other class, you must tell me on the chat box so that I can wait for you a little. Okay, we'll try our best to adjust our pace. The other people in the class will help you out. Okay, you're doing it together, you're learning this together, you're not by yourself. So please make sure you tell me in the chat box, sir, I need a little more time, or something like that. Okay. All right. So, all right. So we played with our lists a little, but Python also gives us another interesting data type, which is called as a tuple. So a tuple, so let's say define a tuple, saying my tuple is defined using round brackets. Instead of square brackets, now we have round brackets. Okay. So again, it works kind of like list. So you could say print my tuple, and we could say we are getting 1 2 3 over here. But one of the good things, or whatever you might want to call it, good or bad, is you can't, once the tuple is defined, you can't change the elements of that tuple now. Okay, so let's say if you want to say my tuple of 0 is equal to 2 now, right? So I'm changing the first element of this tuple to 2. Now, what if, now let's say if I execute this, what happens? We get an error. The object doesn't support assignment. Once it is initialized, it doesn't support reassignment of any elements. And can you guys think why this might be important, or where you could use it? So say, let's say if you are doing this on my list. So on my list, I can say my list of 0 is equal to, let's say, Ravi over here, right? So control X, let me just change Mihir to Ravi. And now as you see over here, the first element was Ravi now, right? But we are getting an error over here. On the 0th element, when I try to change the tuple, we are getting an error. It says that you can't reassign the elements of tuple over there. And why do you think this might be important, or no? What are the use cases that you could think of there, a tuple could be applied, or where this property can be useful? Can you tell me on the chat? So Santosh says where data changes at index are not allowed. I mean, not just at index, like any data changes in that element, right? So final and fixed values, right? Sudipto is saying that, okay, so in any real world software project, it's not just you who was working on this project, right? There is a team of 5 to 7 or even more people who's working on this project. So let's say there are modules which are getting imported, and there are some third-party libraries as well. Even though you try our best to use encapsulate all our variables within our scope, and use we don't expose them globally. But what if still there is a chance that that list element could be modified using some other operation that you are doing in this function itself? And what if you don't want that to happen, right? So in that cases, a tuple might be more useful. There are some other use cases as well. This is not just one use case, and I'll let you find out what are some other use cases where this where you could use tuple. That is part of your homework assignment for today as well. That you need to find out where else you think why tuples are sometimes used instead of a list. Okay, so that's for the tuples. We have something also called as a dictionary. So you could use something like mydict, which is a dictionary, and a dictionary is just a hash map. Now, if we have studied a data structure called a hash map when you were in your engineering school, it is a key value structure that allows you to store key value pairs, and it's a key value pair that you can store in your dictionary. So you could use something like you could say something like A is 1, and then you could say B is 2, B is 3, and something more interesting, which you might not have seen somewhere in other programming. You could also use an integer as a key to this dictionary, and you could say 1 is 3, right? So pretty interesting. Let's say print mydict, and let's see what do we get. We don't want to do this, so let's comment it out. Okay, so we are getting this over here. This is my dictionary. So let's say this is my dict. So okay, this is our dictionary over here. So one thing that you should note about dictionaries is that Now, unlike list, the order of this key value pair, when you're printing it out over here, you're still seeing them in the same order. But this order is not guaranteed, okay? So sometimes if you have a list of or dictionary of, let's say, 1000 elements, it is not necessary that you will get the same order that you first initialize that dictionary in. But with list, we are guaranteed that all these items will stay in the same order as we defined or initialized them. Okay. But with dictionaries, that is not true. Whenever you want to get some items or put some items into the dictionary, you must use the keys and not the index per se. Okay. It won't work that way. All right. So try it out. Try out the dictionary. So guys, let me know once you have tried out the dictionary. And can you guys who have done with dictionary, can you find out how will you change the value of the key A? I want to change the value of this key A from 1 to, let's say, 100. How will you change that? So I want to change the value of this key. Over here, I have the value of the key to from 1, right? So I want to change from 1 to, I want to change this to 100. How will you do that? Again, it is not very different. Look over here what I did for changing the zeroth element of the list, right? So similarly, can you change the element A of my dictionary? So guys who are not able to do it, make sure you are looking at this. We are changing the zeroth element of this list by using a square bracket and then the element, the index of that list. Now instead of those indexes, we have the key values, right? So here are the keys. A, B, 1, these are the keys. And these are the values of those keys, 1, 3, and again 3. Now I want to change the value of the key A. So I want to say my dict of A. Now instead of 1, I should have 100 over here, right? So let's say if I print this out over here, let's see what do we get. Yep. Now instead of 1, we have value of A is 100. Now, can you again, just like we did an append on the list, can you find out how will you add a new key value pair to this dictionary? Like instead of writing it over here, if I dynamically want to add it in my program, I want to add a new key value pair. How will I add it? I want to say, I want to have something like, let's say C over here, right? So how will you add it to your dictionary? I don't want to do it explicitly in the statement over here, but on the runtime, dynamically, I want to add a new key to this my dictionary. How will I do that? Yep. So I think all of you are getting it, but tell me on the chat box, what are you using over there? What was the solution? Sudeep is using dot update. So Sudeep, you don't have to do that necessarily. What you could just say is, let's say you could just say, just like you were modifying it over here, you could also just say my dict of C is equals to 2 now, right? So let's say, what do we get now? Even though the C key never existed in over here, let's see what do we get. Now we have added the key over here. So this is the same way you would uh, no update it, or no, you could also just create a new key value pair by now saying my dict of C is equal to 2 over here. Okay. And again, for everything that we do, there are multiple ways of doing it, and not necessarily is like no one is better than the other, but you also have to think about the readability, how concise you are, how are you trying to unnecessarily use some methods or new functions. You need to make sure you are keeping those things in mind. Okay. And in the back, like Python interpreter might be doing the same thing, like when it executes or converts it to the machine level. So other guys, like everyone else, are you able to hear me properly? Sudipto is having some issues. Okay, so yeah, it could be something with the internet over here. We are closing, no, just close to 2 minutes from our session time. The one last thing that I want to show you is, how do you write uh, functions in Python? So you define functions in Python using the def keyword over here. Okay, so when you say def, it will create a new function. So let's say I want to say my function. Okay, now I want my function to take two parameters over here. Let's say I want two parameters a and b, and I want to just return, no, let's say division of these two numbers. So I want to say a divided by b. Okay, as simple as that. Just like we were doing our if statements, the way we defined our scope was using the colon and then a tab, right? So that's how you do it over here. The return keyword will return the value, and over here I'm just dividing those two numbers and returning the value. Okay, and the way we'll call this function, we could say, let's print this value. So print my function, and now we are calling this function now, right? So let me start off like this. Let's just first call the function my function. Now let's say if I want to divide 10 and 5, right? Save it. But now this won't print out anything on the screen because we just calling that function. Now let's also print it out. So I could say print over here. So this is again a new thing that with Python is you can nest multiple function calls, right? So over here I'm calling the function call my function, and then I'm again nesting it with the print statement, right? So you could do something like this and then print it out, and we got 2.0 over here, right? So you could say return value from my function, say 10 comma 5, right? So let's see. Yep. So 2.0. Either you could remember the sequence of the parameters that you're passing in, or let's say sometimes there are so many parameters that you don't want to remember the sequence, right? So what you could also say is you could give them as a named parameter. So you could say a is equal to 10 and b is equals to 5, right? Or you could reverse the sequence as well. So you could say b is 5 and a is 10. Now note over here that the first element over here is not the first element over here. I'm saying a is equal to 10 as the second element. So the order doesn't matter now, as long as I'm passing the named parameters properly, right? So I'm still getting 2, even though the first element was not the same over here. Okay, so this is how you would do function calls with Python. Try it out. Guys, everyone got it why we are still getting 2, even though the sequence over here 5 and 10 is not a divided by 5 divided by 10 won't give us 2.0, right? 10 divided by 5 is giving us 2.0. Is everyone getting why we are getting 2.0 over here? Because we are passing in them as a named parameters. This b is equal to 5 is will go to this b. This a equals to 10 will go to this 10. Okay. All right, guys. I think that most of you are getting that, and now you're getting to the end of the program. One last thing that I would do is now give you to the link to the quiz for today. As I told you, don't think that if you just work for these 2 hours on the weekends, you will do good in this course or this program. No, you will have to invest some time in learning some things by yourself as well. And that's where the assignments will come as a crucial element to this. Okay. So chat box, let me just send it to everyone. So this is the link for the course assignment for today. It is due before the class tomorrow. So make sure that you spend now tonight or tomorrow morning, today evening, whenever you get some time. It won't take more than an hour, or no, it shouldn't take more than an hour. So think about it and then complete it. Okay, let me just quickly go over the questions as well, so that you guys know. That is weird because it did open up for me over here. Uh, so Divya thinks that she's not able to open up the link over here. Let me make sure that you guys are able to do that. All right, so I know what the error is. Okay, refresh it now. It should be possible. You will get it. So click on that link again. You will get it now. Yep. So once you get over here, there are some multiple choice questions, few long, no, some paragraph questions, and two programming assignments. So I want you to upload two Python scripts over here. Okay, listen to me carefully. I want you to upload two Python scripts, two py files for this one and this one. We'll upload these Python files to these questions over here. Again, these are not very complicated, but just it will make sure that you are getting the concepts that we have done in the class today. Okay, all right. So and again, discuss it on the WhatsApp group, but make sure that all these are individual assignments. You should help others but not give them answers to everything. Okay, so make sure that you are not giving answers to your friends on the WhatsApp group. This goes to everyone, including Divya and myself, that we won't be giving you answers to these quizzes. We'll help you, guide you, but you have to come up with answers to these quizzes by yourself. Okay? All right. So that's it. I want to leave you guys with something what we call as Zen of